This is a Pele Media podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in again today to Goonies Minute, and I am still struggling with this lack of voice.
I'm so concerned. I gave you those lozenges yesterday. Did they help at all?
Clearly.
Not. You know,
Clearly
and
not.
then I offered to make some honey lemon tea for you. Did you do that for yourself?
No, I did not.
That's so unfortunate.
I know.
So without further ado,
I'll keep an eye out for
I
it,
won't
Dad.
give any more doctor's advice. But are you ready to get into this minute? A lot of stuff about to happen.
Let's get into the minute. In the previous minute, we saw the reality of the impending foreclosure set in as the gang each spoke of their wish to fix the situation. At 22 minutes, Bran tells Mikey not to try going on any adventures. At 22 minutes and 20 seconds, Mikey pulls out the map and begins to study it. Mouth, Chunk, and Data gather around him. After studying the map for a moment, a huge bolt of lightning strikes outside the house. They all look at each other as if in some unspoken understanding. At 22 minutes and 44 seconds, Brand is exercising while watching a Cindy Lauper music video on television. At 22 minutes and 55 seconds, Mikey empties out a marble bag on the floor as he prepares their escape plan. And thus ends minute 22 of the Goonies.
At the end of minute 21, I was talking about the validation that Mikey was finally receiving from Data, Mouth, and Chunk. And I said something about me 2, me 3, me 4. Jumped about 4 seconds ahead of myself. That's actually at the beginning of this minute. So that's the validation that they needed, that Mikey needed, because at first they were not behind him. It was kind of a tall tale story. It's like, yeah, whatever. But that kind of gave Mikey the idea that, hey, these guys are behind me now. And Brant makes a comment, you know, Mom would ground him if he let him go on some kind of crazy adventure like this. And the reason why that would be a problem is that Brant has a date with Andy on Friday. But remember, he failed his driver's test. So, I mean, did we ever figure out how old he was?
I can't remember if we figured out how old he was, but I know I looked into how old you had to be to drive.
What was it?
Get your learner's permit or something. I can't remember.
But let's just assume he's at minimum. The youngest he would be is 16.
I would say 16 and
maybe
between 16
17.
and early 18, maybe. I would say about 17.
Yeah, let's say he's 17. I can tell you this, not like I was a Dayton fool back in high school, but they make a comment that is it really that the mom was going to have to drive him to that date? I wonder if that was just Mouth joking. Because he said something, he made that little crude comment like, then you'd have to make it with Andy and your mother.
It was really
which
out
is
of
kind
place.
of like, you wouldn't even, in a kid's movie today, you wouldn't even hear him say that.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange, very out of place
Yeah,
joke.
it was kind of, which I find that interesting, the difference in 25 years or 30 years. You know, that's kind of, you know, what's allowed and what's not allowed now, and what you would get then, what you would get here.
Well, it's like what you said earlier. You hear, like, certain profanity used in this movie, and you even had a countdown of how many times.
Yeah, it was 16.
16 or something like that, and
which I wouldn't even have known unless I read it. But you know, but that is interesting.
Very, and
even a regular PG movie to have that much.
Right. This day and age, you wouldn't even get something that inferred the same meaning as that. What I do find interesting is that I think in any other movie, a kid's adventure movie, the excitement of going on the adventure would be enough reason for these kids to want to do it. But they need something to really hit home, something realistic, an adult situation. And the foreclosure is that. So the fact that that is now what's driving all of these kids to get behind Mikey and go on this mission astonishes me. The fact that they would think to put something that high risk make something that high risk and that realistic be the motivator behind the kids wanting to go on the mission.
All of a sudden, they got real mature.
Something that we left out of the last minute is kind of an interesting little, I guess you could call it a flub. When Brant is pulling Mikey kind of around the porch, you can see a trailer down the street, and apparently that's Richard Donner's trailer.
Really?
Yeah, which it very well could have just been a regular RV, but somehow somebody found that out. I don't know. People have a lot of free time.
Or it could be a lie.
It very well could be a lie. People do that.
Interesting quote that Mikey has right after the funny little sink incident. He says, "What are we going to do about that country club? You know, it's killing our parents." You know, he says that, and he's looking at the map. And during this whole time, the sad music has still been playing. The sad violin music, the somber music, has still been playing a little bit in the background. But what I think is really cool is when he says, "What are we going to do about that?" You know, and he kind of looks at the map. What are we going to do? You hear the music kind of start to mix, and they start the doon doon doon. It's just a little bit involved in the sad music, and that leads to, I think, one of the cool shots.
Yeah, very poignant shot.
Yeah, and it takes up the entire screen, and you have the map and landscape or horizontal. You see all the kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's only their eyes showing.
Yeah.
And that's really when you start hearing that music a little bit. Then you get the thunder and lightning. Everybody looks back.
Yeah.
And then they look back to the map. You hear that music, again, a little bit of a mixture. And it was like if that thunder is the jolt that makes them realize. So you had the point where they were all together, but they didn't say what they were going to do, but they're all on the same team. Then you have the jolt. They look back, they look away, they look back at the map, and right then and there is when they make the decision, in my opinion, we got to go get that treasure.
You know, there's two things. One, the shot of them looking at the map, there's something strange that I can't really put my finger on, the setup of that shot.
It is weird.
It's weird. Everything is in focus, from the window behind them to the map in the foreground, which is kind of in focus. And
their eyes are weird looking.
Yeah, so I'm glad that it does kind of stand out, because it's supposed to register on you a certain way, and I guess it's just the way the shot was processed, so that they could get everything in there. The lightning that you mentioned, it just kind of registers that moment and makes them think there's no turning back. There's a moment in The Usual Suspects, right before they take down the boat, and they're all kind of sitting in a van across the way, and they're looking at it, and it's now or never. Like, this is the score that we have to take down. And I can't remember which Baldwin, but one of the characters says, the news said it's raining in New York, and that's where they were going to go back to, you know, if this didn't work, if they weren't going to take this. And you see Gabriel Byrne, the lead character, something just kind of registers. And the way I read that is him saying, it's raining in New York. Where we are, the only place we could get back to is kind of miserable right now. So it's all or nothing. It's what we're here looking at that we have to set out to do is the only thing that we can do. Because what we got behind us is rain, lightning, everything like that. And I've always just kind of read those little sequences the same way. They're kind of getting a message of like,
only go forward.
Oh, you can only go forward. You cannot go back, because there's nothing to go back to except lightning. And it's just the way I read it.
It's actually a brilliant way to look at it.
So who knows? Maybe The Usual
Suspects.
Suspects.
Much more intelligent than my way, but
The Usual Suspects is a remake of The Goonies. Think about it. They got to go get their rich stuff on the boat.
A lot more people die, and
a few more.
SHIT was 16 times.
It was 17 times in the.
No, it was.
No, I know.
It was about 127.
Probably. Wait, do you know that for a fact?
Not. It was another word, a little bit, other four-letter words, about 127 times.
So
I did know the number at once.
Really?
I had looked it up.
Wow.
You know, and I didn't do a minute-by-minute breakdown, but maybe one day.
You just went through and counted.
No, I looked it up. I took somebody's word for it. Could be a lie, like we said earlier.
Yeah, right.
And I believe lies, like you do sometimes.
That's true. All right, so Good Enough by Cindy Lauper. And this song was just a huge hit. It was all over the radio. You still hear it played at like retro 80s nights at clubs all the time. It's actually we have the 8-bit version that opens up our show, which was attached to the Goonies video game. Cindy Lauper was huge at the time. Very, 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 very big. And Spielberg, being the marketing genius that he is, I think said, probably in conjunction with a lot of other people, we have got to get her to do a song that accompanies the movie. I don't know how common that was at that time. Nowadays you get, maybe you don't see it in the last couple of years, but a lot of the time, a big tentpole movie, they'll have someone come on and do a song to play over the credits and everything. I mean, you could also say that the James Bond movies each do that. They each have their own song. But in this
Ghostbusters.
case, how could we have forgotten that? That's maybe the best example. Steven Spielberg, I think, was probably one of the prime motivations behind getting someone on board to do that. Finding Cindy Lauper was a brilliant move because she was huge at the time. And her style of music is just very fun. It's very fitting.
And it is. And another thing, she had Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and the video involved a lot of wrestlers. You remember that?
Yeah.
Captain Lou Albano.
Okay.
And then she was involved with WrestleMania, the first one or the second one, which is, became a big deal.
Yeah.
So she was involved in like crazy mainstream, but also wrestling stuff, and she was a superstar.
It's funny you say that because the music video for Good Enough was also just a huge event. Back in the day when music videos were such an event, and she had a ton of professional wrestlers in the music video for it.
Right.
The 2-part music video, the first part premiered just a little bit before the movie came out with all of their cameos. Such a strange idea.
Yeah, I don't think it was 100% her, but at that point in time, Vince McMahon and the WWF was really pushing hard to make it not just pure wrestling, but sports entertainment is what they call it now, and to just really try to get the brand beyond the crazy beer belly drunks in small cities. They wanted to go worldwide, and the way for them to do that was to get a singer that was a worldwide or worldly known singer, famous singer,
nationally renowned.
Yeah, that you could say that too.
Well, it was a good move on his part because this was an audience that wrestling would have never hit.
No,
so,
absolutely.
Listeners of Cindy Lauper. So, like I said, it was broken up into 2 pieces. The second chapter of the video came out shortly after the movie premiered, both of which were premieres on MTV. And that part of it had cameos from the cast of The Goonies, as well as a long sequence where, I say long, it's a sequence where Steven Spielberg is addressing you, the viewer, and it's really strange. I mean, you don't get music video events like this. Do you remember back when Michael Jackson would release a new single? They would take out time on like the biggest night of the week, prime time.
Talk about it for a long time.
To talk about it and then premiere it. And I'm just like, what the hell, man? That's an art form I really miss, is the music video. So whenever she released the song, it was just called Good Enough. And the studio insisted that it be called Goonies Are Good Enough to put the title in there, which I understand where they're coming from, but at the same, because, whatever. But at the same time, I don't think she ever referenced it as Goonies Are Good Enough. I think she only, in concert or wherever, she only ever called it Good Enough. Because that's the song she wrote.
That's right.
She also recounted the music video, which, again, was such a huge deal. Richard Donner being just incredibly pushy when he was directing it. But for anybody who's interested in seeing it, it's on YouTube. And the music video. It used to be just a very different thing than it is today. That is all that I have for this minute.
Yeah, that's been an interesting minute.
We see Bran at the very end on yet another exercise machine, the thing that he was using earlier, and then Mikey is starting to do
something with some marbles.
Something weird is going on.
However, that little bag is going to come into play later on,
right.
And it's going to play a really big, significant part. So,
but until then, that's all I've got for minute 22.
That's all I have too.
Awesome. All right, everybody, tune back in tomorrow to minute number 23 of the Goonies, and until then, I'm Brady,
and this is Chris,
and we're here to remind you that Goonies
never say die.
Who's got the sore throat now? Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com.